Hello again, it's Garson, and we're here to talk about the new Shadow Pupper, Nimbus. Oh, look at him, he's so adorable. So, without further ado, we're going to dive right into it. Come on over. Let's talk about the new Shadow Dog that comes with the new Shadow Magic Sorcerer. You ready? So, I'm going to pop out some notes. We're going to dive right into it. And I'm going to break down some cool features with the Hound of Ill Omen. And thanks to JGS from the ASCII Art Archive, some cool ASCII art of the Hound. So a big thank you to you guys too. So basically, I just want to thank you guys a lot. I'm going to try a different little bit of format, sort of breaking down the dog, no real build time or anything like that. You let me know in the comments if you like it. And this is going to answer some of your questions, given that this is coming from the new subclass in patch 8 and the stress test and testing it for you guys. Okay, so Nimbus. Let's talk about Nimbus. I'll go over some questions that you guys were asking about Nimbus, and what we'll do is actually go over Shadow Magic, how to get the Shadow Hound, and the big one is the Ominous Bite out of all the features, and let's talk about maybe theory crafting or the idea of getting more sorcery points for free using this ability. Okay, so follow along on the right hand side, and if you want to support the channel, it'd be a really nice help if you just watch the whole video, and hopefully I can entertain you, get you hyped up for Nimbus, because he's a good boy. Who's a good boy? Alright, so patch 8 questions. You guys had some questions about the dog, right? So let's look at one. Clever Numbskull. I'd love to see a video on Omen dog from the Shadow Sorcerer. For instance, how many points can you get from an Omen and so on, right? Could we make maybe a character with the ultimate cantrips or Eldritch Blast? Get ready for it. Well, I've got some good ideas, and also we've got Couch Potato. He said, "Hi Garson, loving the cool ideas. Love you too. I was wondering, could you test out if your Shadow Sorcerer character can attack Hound of Ill Omen and whatnot?" So a few quirks and questions. I'm sure you guys will have more, but I'll try to answer what I can tell you from my own testing. And of course, what we're going to do is use some clips to kind of break down what the dog can and cannot do. Like I said, with the Shadow Sorcerer, let's do a dedicated video for the dog because he's such a good boy. Now, I did play patch 8 stress test, my first run with the new subclasses. I just played only the subclasses on live stream. The first run actually included a Shadow Sorcerer, so we did actually see what the Hound can do. So I appreciate the questions. If you guys have some more, let me know. Today's video is going to be focused just on today's little Hound, right? And I'll try and answer your questions. But we'll get right into it. The Shadow Magic at level 6 is how you get the Hound of Ill Omen. It's going to cost you 3 sorcery points. I'll go into the game and so you can see it live right here. Hound of Ill Omen, right? It's a short rest ability. And so if you have 3 sorcery points and you have to resummon the dog, or it's the first time you've summoned it at level 6, it comes back for 3 sorcery points, but afterwards it's permanent, so you can actually save on those resources. And when you use your Eyes of the Dark, this won't blind the dog or you, right? The special feature about the Shadow Sorcerer is that when you go to use Darkness with sorcery points, right, you'll actually be able to see within it. And it has a nice cool like purple aura about it too. So you and the dog actually don't get blinded in this, but keep in mind the dog actually can be blinded. So use this to kind of control an area and use the dog to attack and get better accuracy with its Ominous Bite. But we'll talk about all that in a moment, okay? So just want to go over that. So Shadow Teleport at level 8, I figured I'd mention this, or level 11. If you and the Shadow Dog are out there and about, you can always teleport back to obscure areas like your Darkness Cloud for free using a bonus action. So try to utilize that to go out there, support the dog, but then come back to your safety bubble that is the darkness. Now, talking about Nimbus himself, right? The Shadow of Ill Omen. Let's pull up his stats really quick so you can see him on screen. He's a level 6 monstrosity. So, by the way, he's not undead. So don't go thinking you can use the circlet of bones, right? This is going to help give bludgeoning and slashing and piercing resistance to your undead. Well, that doesn't work because he's a monstrosity, and I would be careful if you use the abyss beckoners, because this will drive him potentially crazy and he'll go berserk and attack you and your allies or NPCs and get you in a lot of trouble in honor mode. Okay, so thankfully he's making the saving throws now, but let's maybe take the gloves off, although if we kept it on, this would give him mad defenses with the resistances, but personally I don't think it's really worth the risk. Okay, we want a good boy, not a raging, crazy dog. Okay, so make sure you take care of your dog. Now, let's keep on moving ahead with some of the notes here. Sorry. He is permanent, which means after a long rest, he'll actually persist. He won't have any benefits like the heroism elixir or whatnot, but he'll still be around and you can save yourself some sorcery points. And my recommendation is trying to, you know, take care of him. Make him as more powerful as you can, or plan your team or your build around him is what this video is all about, right? So he doesn't level up after level 6. He's just going to remain level 6. After you get to level 6, you'll summon him. He'll have some decent stats, right? He has got 42 HP, 18 armor class, 16 strength, and this does affect his attack, aka his accuracy, but not his damage. So strength elixir, think of that, but it won't give you any benefit to additional damage, which isn't really the point anyway. And he does have a decent 2 initiative, so if you gave him a vigilance elixir, he'd be up to a nice 7. Which is actually pretty good on honor mode in the later acts. Bonus movement starting in his turn in darkness. So if you look right here, gloom step. If he starts his turn in that darkness cloud, he'll actually get 10 more feet of movement, which is really nice. And then you can use pots and elixirs just like you can normally with a bonus action. So now that I have him selected, whether it was out or in combat, either or, I can use his bonus action to say, take this elixir here, right? So just keep in mind with summons, a good practice is to realize you could actually go into your menu like this and actually right click things like elixirs or even healing pots or speed pots and drink them just like a normal character would. Okay. Now, the dog actually has 3 abilities. What I mean is he has the Ominous Bite, which is an attack roll with piercing damage, right? He has the Umbral Tangle, and then he even has a very unique ability called Splinter on reaction, okay? So as long as you don't use your reaction point, if you get hit with a melee attack, you'll actually splinter off. So we'll talk about those abilities really quickly, right? So what about Umbral Tangle? How about this? I'll pull up a video. We'll talk about Ominous Bite because a lot of this video has to do with that. But let's talk about Umbral Tangle first. It's a 2d6 necrotic if you get the saving throw. It's in a pretty wide area. I think it shows it. Yep. It's a 10 foot to 3 meter area, right? And it's a wisdom saving throw, or I should say it's a wisdom spellcaster spell, kind of, right? It goes off his wisdom, which really just means a +1. But if you could raise his spell save DC with, say, a battle mage elixir, right? You can actually enhance this so that it's a lot easier to land this strength saving throw. You can see it's a 19 coming from his strength, proficiency, difficulty, tactician. I'm not really sure. Some resources, like the tooltip says strength, but then like the saving throw says wisdom. But regardless, it's a area attack. It's a strength saving throw to get the full damage and a tangling effect. Think of entangling vines, right? But at least it's always half damage. So to kind of make this easier to see, what I'll do is I'll pull up a video clip. We'll play this right here. And you can see the Umbral Tangle in action. You ready? Here we go. So I'll use Umbral Tangle. Remember, I'm always going to get half the damage on this necrotic damage. And if I get this, this actually causes the entangle effect. So advantages and disadvantages when attacking them and whatnot, plus the full necrotic damage. So pretty simple. You just kind of cast it. If you don't want to bite them, you can go for an area attack, doing some nice necrotic damage. Nice thing is it's basically a free attack. It's always going to do something towards your targets. And if there's more targets in the area, you can do more damage, right? But it gets a little sillier when we talk about splinters. So we'll talk about that in a moment. You can see the saving throw over there on the side. Now, let's get into Splinter. Okay, so I have some videos on Splinter. This is going to be pretty funny, and stick around to the end of the video. I'll show you something really crazy. But reaction point. So, like I said, with Splinter, this is a reaction ability. What I'll do is play another clip showing this off, right? But just so before we do that, basically it creates another little small dog after you get hit with a melee attack, and the small dogs can splinter too. It might be a bug, I'm not really sure, but I kind of hope not, because they don't really last for too long, and the dogs really just kind of cause another little umbral tangle area attack. Sometimes they attack with their bite, but it doesn't cause any ominous bites, but you cannot control them, and they last for about 3 turns, so it's not really broken. But like I said, stick around to the end. For now, what I'll do is pull up a little demonstration of the Splinter ability. So if your pupper gets hit, right, remember it has to be a melee damage and it cannot be radiant damage. But if that's true, you can use a reaction point on the dog and they can go ahead and splinter off a small little pupper. Here we go. So you'll use your reaction point. He'll splinter off. There we go. And this is funny because the little dog, again, is uncontrollable. Right? So we're going to have Arnson and Cuthbert start making something really crazy here, where the little dog, not only is it going to more than likely use the umbral tangle ability, boop, right? But if it gets hit, it has its own reaction, which you cannot control. It will always try and make another pupper. And I think this is slightly bugged. I don't know if they're supposed to be doing this or not. But if it's intended, it's amazing, and it's really cool. But as you can see, if he sweeps, hits both of us, yeah, they just keep making more pups. So, it's breeding season. They're popping out like bunnies. All right, more on that and a little bit later towards the end. I want to move on to something more interesting. It's definitely something you can build towards. It's Ominous Bite, okay? Now, Ominous Bite is a 3d6 piercing. Like I said, strength does affect its attack roll, but not necessarily the plus, you know, whatever strength damage, right? So, what you can do with this is pretty interesting. I guess the key features here is that it's an attack roll, which does imply that you can use the Heroism Elixir. The Colossus Elixir, from what I've tested, does make him visually bigger, but doesn't actually do anything for his attack damage. The Giant's Elixir is actually a really great choice for this. Again, being a permanent, you know, ally, he can actually help out. And if you give him the massive 27 strength elixir, right, this is going to give him a +8 to his attack rolls. So it makes him way more reliable to land a Ominous Bite. And we'll talk about what it means to land the Ominous Bite, because you can also use Bless, maybe Speed Pots or Haste to get double attacks, right? There's blinding targets, gives him advantage for more accuracy. There's always hold spells, which guarantees a hit. So think of all the ways you could actually land your attack. I know for one, as a sorcerer, what you can do as a shadow sorcerer is lay down a darkness cloud. This would give him advantage, right? We might see that a little bit later in the video. But we can also haste him, right? Haste him and ourselves with a twin spell. We can haste him and ourselves, so we're both attacking twice. Or we can just go ahead and use a hold person spell or a scroll, hold somebody down and guarantee a hit, right? And the reason attacking is really important is because if Nimbus is capable of landing a hit on a target, especially thanks to this massive strength elixir, right? What's going to happen is you're actually going to get a spell save DC roll. I think it uses wisdom, but apparently it says constitution. But check it out with me right here. It says constitution, right? It says base, and then you have constitution and proficiency. Since he's level 6, this never goes past 3. And then there's the difficulty tactician, which is an interesting bonus. But if you get Ominous Bite off, you get an Omen, which is, there's a lot to talk about here, okay? So, let's just think about actually landing this. Say we land the attack, right? It's wisdom or it's constitution, doesn't really matter. If there's a way to raise spell save DC, like a battle mage elixir, not only would the battle mage elixir end up helping us land tangle, but it would also help us land omens, okay? So what I'm going to do is actually shift back to landing attacks by giving you a video clip right here about, let's see some of the ways we can land this attack, right? This is the attack roll clip. As you can see here, Ominous Bite, just going over some of the same details, right? So if we can land our hit, but we're not landing the Ominous Bite, okay. So one target we need to practice on is, can we guarantee or, you know, get reliable hits on the dog so we can actually, you know, get chances at the Ominous Bite. Okay, so we can give him more attacks with haste or speed pots. Let's ignore the split for the moment. Oh, okay, I guess we're making puppies. There we go. And you can see all the things that kind of play into an attack roll here on the right. Just trying to give you some examples. But what's happening is we're not landing the Ominous Bite. So shift over. Let's see what I can do here. All right. I'll shift to the Colossal. You'll see when I go ahead and bite, this doesn't really do any additional damage right here. Right, it's just the base pierce damning. So I'm just trying to give you some clips to show you some testing I was doing with the attack rolls. Now let's actually talk about the spell save DC with trying to land the Omen. Let's say we can land the hit. The Omen is really a big deal with this dog because we could potentially get some sorcery points. Okay, I covered this in the Shadow Magic video, but here, just for the time being, let's try and land some Omens. Now Halcyon is using the gloves, the Helldust gloves. If you didn't know this, on unarmed attacks, like monk, fist attacks, you can actually potentially bleed targets, and there's some other reliable ways to get bleed off. But bleed gives your opponent disadvantage on Constitution saving throws, and that's a big deal because the Omen is based on Constitution saving throws. So let's guarantee an attack roll with a hold person spell. We're guaranteed to hit and crit, and we do big damage. Okay, and now since we're guaranteed to hit, let's see what the spell save DC roll is. It says right here all of these factors play into it. Apparently Constitution, obviously the proficiency bonus, and the 8 base, and so on and so forth. Now if you see, when it comes to making the enemy saving throw against our spell save DC, right, if we give it disadvantage from bleeding, we can have a higher chance at getting the ominous bite. That's all I wanted to really cover there. So it doesn't really matter if it's Wiz or Constitution. There's not really ways to raise that so much. So we can use Battle Mage elixirs. We can use maybe Reverb, since it is a Constitution saving throw. Reverb stacks can lower the opposition's ability to, you know, avoid this. Bleed status gives disadvantage to them. And there is Bane and Baneful Striking Gloves. These are two different things that are stackable in terms of saving throw debuffs to your enemies, right? So it is a Constitution saving throw. That's all I'm trying to say there. Now, it is a random element if you get this off. What I'll try and do now is actually pull up a video, another clip of stacking omens. This is a little bit theoretical, so you can actually see a lot of all these stacks. I'm just gonna let this play, but basically you can get acid, poison, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder omens. You can't get multiple stacks of this. All it is how many turns you have to utilize the omen, right? So you can't keep stacking this, but once you land the Omen, it'll choose a random element of the 6. It's like literally rolls, the game rolls behind the scenes like a 1d6 and lands an element, right? And so this video is just me, if I theoretically just keep trying to get every single Omen on there with decent attack rolls, with decent spell save DC, how many of these can I stack? So maybe to answer your question, you can't just keep stacking these per se, but you can get multiple elements on the same target. So think of a giant HP target like a boss or like a Steel Watcher here, right? So you could get multiple elements, right? So each element isn't necessarily stacking, it's just giving you more turns to do something with it, right? And that something with it is if you land even 1 damage on the element, your sorcerer, the owner of the dog, will actually get 1 single sorcery point, which is what's so, you know, interesting about this ability, right? So I'll skip ahead. We now have a lot of omens on this guy. I've just been attacking with a mod that just keeps letting me get more and more action. So I don't know. Statistically, you know, you might just be, it's not that reliable even if you're boosting everything, but just to, you know, give you a clip, show like, okay, if I were able to attack infinitely, what could we do with all the stacks and whatnot, right? So again, you have 1 of 6 elements. You can't stack the element per se and get multiple sorcery points, but you could get all the different elements. And what if we could target that element? Could we get sorcery points for each element? All right. So multiple omens can apply at the same time, as you saw there. So then the idea here is, how can we utilize that to use the omens to get free sorcery points for our sorcerer, right? 1 sorcery point is always granted to the Hound's owner, this being Shadowheart, right? And you have to be the same element as the Omen, but you only need to do 1 point of damage, okay? So the idea is to not spend resources. Think about this. We want a net gain in sorcery points and maybe spell slots, right? And then we could choose what to do with the sorcery points. But a Hound is already 3 SP investment in this economy. It's a tough economy, right? But it's permanent. So maybe you keep the dog alive, or it lasts through long rest. You have it for the next day. So once you have the dog though, right? Don't maybe use things like Chromatic Orb, because Chromatic Orb could give you any element you need on the fly. Let's see, Chromatic Orb could give you any of the elements of the 6, right? But it is going to at least cost you an attack roll that could miss, and 1 sorcery point, and so on and so forth, right? But, you know, just something to think about. You could get a free cast of Chromatic Orb, but I think the idea we want to go for is, what if we just have every cantrip of elements that we need? We can almost get every cantrip on 1 single sorcerer that actually owns the dog. Thunder with the new Booming Blade, Shocking Grasp, Freya Frost, Firebolt, and then acid splash, and I think you can get poison on a sorcerer, but I don't have it here. These don't cost any sorcery points or spell slots, so we have these on standby. We let the dog attack, we get the Omen, we attack for free with these, you know, cantrips that cost nothing. Or what if we had a giant who had the cleaver, right? The cleaver ability allows us to change our weapon to almost every element of the dog, right? And we could do this without any action, so this doesn't cost us anything. As long as we're enraged, we can go ahead and throw a weapon that has the element. Or if we just build for rainbow damage, like Gale here is an arcane archer with fire, thunder, acid, poison from the arrow, and even a cold arrow. So we have almost every possible element on a single shot thanks to this special shot here. So what to use SP on? Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. Give me a second. Let me pull up another example. Now that we had all those omens, right? Let's see. We'll go ahead. Yeah, right here. Let me give you another clip. So what if we just have the omens? What are examples of ways we could build a team or a character that could utilize all those stacks? So here's the rainbow example I was giving you. Gale here has just about every element we could look for. So we have poison, we have this. Now Watcher is immune to poison, so we'll never get the actual poison omen to pay out because we need to do at least 1 damage. That's why I use this example. But as for cold arrows and fire on every shot, and I'll use the lightning bow and I'll take a shot to build a lightning charge. So as long as I'm doing 1 damage of every element omen, I can get multiple stacks. So Shadowheart started with 8 sorcery points, and now I just got a couple of these omens to trigger, right? So now she's up to extra sorcery points, right? So look at that. Yeah, so you can trigger all the omens if you had a single attack that did all these different elements. Pretty interesting, right? Now, what about another example with the cleaver and whatnot? And the cantrips. So another good alternative is, like I said, maybe your sorcerer alone has every cantrip you would need. So I go ahead and shock him. And so I get the omen from lightning with that. So a free cantrip just got me more sorcery points, right? What about if I use a cleaver? So I'll go enraged, and then I'll use an acid cleaver, salami. Hell yeah. But I'm going to throw the salami that's full of acid, and then that will also end up granting me the gloves, give me fire damage and the acid damage from the cleaver attack. And so Shadowheart just got even more sorcery points from a single attack, right? So pretty good examples all around. I've just figured I'd kind of show you the thought process of like how to go about using the dog to its fullest potential. Now, I don't know if you're going to really get more. Let's think about this for a second. If we go back to Shadowheart, if I use the ability to use my sorcery points, right? If I try to convert sorcery points into additional spell slots, it's pretty hefty. You always have to pay at least 1 sorcery point and then another sorcery points converted. What I mean by that is for a level 1, you'd have to spend 2 slots. So for a level 6, you would have to spend 7 points, right? Are you realistically going to get all that? Or should you actually just use your free sorcery points to continuously cast one of your best new abilities, Eyes of the Dark, for free? It only takes 2 sorcery points, which is really nice, and then you and the dog both benefit from it, makes the dog and you protected, gives you advantage against blind targets, and you can teleport back to it. So one of my examples right there, right? But otherwise, I mean, you do what you want to do, right? You could do more meta magic like twin spells, more darkness like I'm saying, high level spells, maybe. I think it's kind of like depending on how often this can go off and how reliably you can get free attacks, cantrips, cleaver to get the rainbow damage, all that, to get these free sorcery points. But yeah, the conversion otherwise is pretty expensive if you're going for spell slots. So maybe it's better to just use it on darkness and meta magic. But I'll leave you with that. Right now, naturally, I say in these videos, how do we build and level up these characters up? Now, I didn't really play with the dog in mind. I wasn't familiar with the mechanics. After playing it, though, you can kind of see it in play a little bit in the new subclasses only run part 1 or run 1. I did play a Shadow Sorcerer, and it was a lot of fun. I used the new Booming Blade, I used the dog, I used the new Shadow Blade spell. It was awesome. I really like Shadow Magic, and you should definitely check it out. But otherwise, come watch the live streams. I'll test stuff like this in the live streams, and we have more fun when everyone's goofing off in chat. Right now the Dirge run is like super fun, but I try to give you these mechanics so you can go into honor mode, get your first golden dice, or just have fun with the new subclasses once they come out. Think of all these crazy ideas. The dog itself is a really fun multi-class potential, because once you're at level 6 you can kind of dive into some other multi-class, or just do what I did and go pure class. But I think you should try and think about your team like having the elemental cleaver or maybe an archer that can have all the damage in one shot, so that when they get that dog, the ominous bite on the dog, you can have some more fun getting free sorcery points, right? So I love answering questions like this. I'm trying to target certain requests and give you a dedicated video on these new mechanics. And I really appreciate you guys. You're my sponsor. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, the best support was I know this was more of a breakdown and mechanically informative, so hopefully it wasn't too much of a slog, but I really appreciate you. It helps so much to just watch the full video. If you want to support it further, come join the membership or jump into the live stream. That means so much to me. And before I go, I have a fun little clip for you. I'll just leave it at that. How many dogs can we make with all the silliness that comes with the Splinter dogs? So with that, guys, I appreciate you. You have a blessed one. I'll catch you in the next video, all right?